Wednesday, June 10th, 2015, in the basement as usual. It's Edition of Swishing podcast coming to you sort of live, and I'm rejoining. Joe's back after his 1 week hiatus, and he's here. Definitely amped up to talk all things Belmont, Triple Crown, and American Pharoah, and we'll get to that in a moment. That's our top story, but to open up and talk about all the things that's going on this week in sports, and I always say that how we're so lucky that we get so many just fun sports topics, and we have the NBA Finals becoming a great series, a series that no one expected. 2-1, the Cavs have now taken the lead going into Game 4 in Cleveland, which is tomorrow night. If they win that, no team in NBA history has come back from 3-1, so that's going to be huge and something we're going to talk about. We have the Stanley Cup Finals. Tampa Bay Lightning are ahead of the Blackhawks. Blackhawks that me and Joe both picked to represent the Western Conference in the NHL playoffs, and they're down 2-1, so a lot to talk about that. New York baseball, one team streaking. Well, until today, they just lost, I believe, in the 11th inning. Was it 5-4 or something like that to the Nationals? But up until today, Yankees right now, Tanaka comes back. Tanaka Tuesday pitches against Scherzer. He's one of the best pitchers in the league. They win that game, get 8 hits on Scherzer, win 6-1. Bad news, though, Andrew Miller is now on the DL, apparently with a knee injury. I'm not sure why Girardi uses him so much, or as much as he does. Him and Betances need some rest, so we'll get into that. On the other hand, you got the Mets, who still are in first place. Yanks are helping them out by beating the Nats, but, it comes a time where you have to make some moves to help out your roster. When the pitcher on your opposing team has more hits than you do in a game, that's usually a problem, and I'm sure, as you know, the Mets were no-hit yesterday by a 27-year-old journeyman rookie, so that's very concerning. But the top story in my mind, and I know definitely in Joe's mind, is the first Triple Crown since the 1970s, long before we were born, thanks to American Pharoah and Victor Espinoza as jockey, and Bob Baffert, the trainer, and everyone involved with that horse. Something incredible to watch. I watched it, and Joe watched it. A lot of people watched it. The way he broke away at the end was very exciting, and I feel like it's not getting enough, pub as I thought it would. But we both didn't go. Our friends went. You were planning on going. I was planning on going. Stuff came up, and we missed history, and that's it stings. But especially for us, because we both really care about the ponies and all that. But anyway, before I continue rambling, you could say your hellos. How's everything going? Good.
I'm going good. Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Sorry for the 1 week hiatus.
No, that's all right. We had to get some soccer in, and Joe Carlin came on, did his thing.
Listen, I listened to the entire thing last week. It was really great.
Very good, right?
Great podcast.
The ending was very good. Say the best for last.
I mean, every time we do this, we're great.
Yeah, we're getting
there. At the beginning, we were getting our feet wet a little bit, but now that we get some repetition, we have some consistency. We know how to play off each other. We know how to bring guys like Gene and Joe on who can contribute. Pretty soon we'll have Croft coming on soon. He'll be contributing to some golf stuff. Yeah. This is going to continue to be a great summer. But let's get back into American Pharoah.
Yeah, talk about
I've got a lot on my mind about that special freaking horse. Anybody who knows me knows that I work for an independent website, Heavy.com, and we're looking to continue to grow our sports section month by month, and we're doing that. We've gone from hundreds of thousands to now millions of page views per month in the last couple of months. But over this year's Triple Crown season, I had started preparing and doing a lot of research for this back in February and March time. So I was really, really acclimated to all the top 30, 40 horses that were running between the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont. And I've only been really familiar with the ponies since I was like 9 or 10. My uncle owns a couple of race horses, believe it or not. That's a factoid.
Only since 9 or 10.
That's only since 9 or 10. That's a factoid. My uncle does own a couple of stakes and some horses, and my dad has always been a horse racing guy. So I'm familiar with the history of the sport. I'm familiar with a lot of great past race horses. Not even like the Seattle Slews, the Affirms, the Secretariats of the world. I'm really, really familiar with like the Deputy Ministers and the Dynaformers and the Lemon Drop Kids and the Silver Charms of the world, who are great racehorses from the past couple of decades. But those great horses never did what American Pharoah accomplished last Saturday. And when I say what he accomplished was special, it was indeed special. This horse coming into the Triple Crown season was the favorite. And going into the Derby, there were other favorites. co-favorites, if you will, like Dortmund and like Firing Line and Materiality and Carpe Diem, and Frosted too, who ran the Belmont Stakes also. All of these horses finished in the top 7 in the Derby. So this was really a great class of horses. This is like the 2003 NBA draft class of horses. That's how really like special these horses were. And for American Pharoah to stand out above and beyond all of these other horses, first of all, that's an accomplishment in itself. But let's look to each of the Triple Crown races individually. American Pharoah ran kind of a slow Kentucky Derby time, but he still won at the wire, and he beat Firing Line. In the Preakness, it was a torrential downpour right before the race started, and American Pharoah had ran one other previous race in the rain before, and he, every time out in the slop, he's been phenomenal. So that was tailor-made to him, and he ran the Preakness going away. Now, the biggest problem, obviously, when it comes to the Belmont Stakes and horses in particular, is the 1.5 mile distance. Can these horses go a mile and a half? Because horses today, they're not bred for distance anymore. They're bred for speed. They're bred to run 7 furlongs, a mile, a mile and 16th maybe at most in these stake races. So the 1.5 mile was his biggest question mark coming in. And not only did he won, but like Eddie alluded to before, he pulled away at the end. And he ended up winning by about, 6 or 7 lengths? I forgot off the top of my head. But one of my favorite factoids that a lot of people don't really necessarily realize, I mean, they got the final time of the race, which was 2:26 and 3/5, I'm sorry, which was amazing. But it was, since the Belmont started over 147 years ago, it was the 6th fastest time in the history of the Belmont Stakes. And
it shows you how good the horse was.
And there's only one other Triple Crown winner who ran a faster time in the Belmont Stakes. Do you know who that was?
Probably Secretariat.
It was Secretariat. So the two fastest Belmont Stakes times between Triple Crown winners. First is Secretariat, second is American Pharoah. That's pretty damn good. That is elite company. Now, just like horses are now bred for speed, there, in the last couple of years, there have also been controversy about horses who don't necessarily run in the Kentucky Derby or the Preakness, but they end up running in the Belmont Stakes. Like last year, California Chrome had the opportunity to win the Belmont, but he lost. He came fourth because the distance got to him. And Tonalist, a horse that did not run in the Derby or the Preakness, ended up running and racing at Belmont about a month before and winning a stakes race called the Peter Pan, and ended up coming out and beating him last year. So California Chrome had the opportunity to do it. Big Brown had the opportunity to do it. Smarty Jones had the opportunity to do it. Silver Charm had the opportunity to do it. I can keep going back and forth, and back on it to 1978 when Affirmed was the last one to do it. But this is really, really special. And in this day and age, the Triple Crown is probably going to become a little more. I mean, in the 70s, we had 3 winners, then we had a 37 break. The next time you see a Triple Crown winner probably won't be 37 years from now. But at the same time, it's still going to be an accomplishment that happens every so often. Like, we may not see another Triple Crown winner for about 15, 20, 25 years from now. So he was a special horse. Obviously, I was upset I couldn't be there, but I covered the race live for work. And all of our friends were there. They got to witness history, which was phenomenal, amazing. And just the way he pulled away at the end, he was really the strongest horse. And it's very rare to see a horse basically ran okay in the Derby, gets a little better in the Preakness, and then he ran his best race ever in the Belmont Stakes. That is a special, special horse. He got better with every race. So I'm done. I could really go on and on and on about times and how special this horse is.
We'll continue talking about it because I'm obviously interested to how I love the ponies too, and I was upset that I could not make it there thanks to my wonderful girlfriend and her plans she had. But anyway, I digress. The worst things first, I'm sure the scene there probably was incredible. I mean, all the radio stations and TV channels and all the coverage, all the people there just having a good time. And we've been there before. We know how it's like. And I'm sure with the height and feel that today could be history, it must have been awesome. We never really got a chance to talk to our friends about this, but I would like to hear them in the future. So that's the first thing. I'm sure like the atmosphere must have been incredible to see that, and the race itself. Like you said, second fastest Belmont time for a Triple Crown winner, and the only horse to beat it was the Super Horse Secretariat. That shows you how good this horse is. That shows you why this horse should get credit, and why people make jokes about it. They care for like the 2 minutes on TV, but what it comes down to is horse racing is just the three big events here that people seem to always care about. And I can make the argument more people, I'm not sure, but numbers wise, but maybe you agree with me with this. Maybe outside of the golf Masters, probably not, but most golf events, most tennis events, other sports that are not the four major sports. I mean, how many people are tuning in and watching this? Everyone knows the top horses' names. Everyone is want to bet on it. I mean, people care.
No, absolutely do. People really do care. So the Kentucky Derby is an event that draws 125,000 people every year, and we see athletes like a Tom Brady
flying in,
the
fight to this. Yeah,
right, it's amazing.
So I think people should care and think, and realize how was this the longest drought in between Triple Crown winners? Or maybe back in the old night.
No, I think this was the longest drought between Triple Crown winners. So I think for between the time I want to say Citation won and Secretariat won in 1973 was about 20-something years. Okay. So this is, I believe, 37 years since the time of the first winner is definitely the longest drought in between horses.
Right. So there's a lot of pressure going into this, and I thought that all the people talking about it, and My point is, there's a lot of naysayers who are saying, "Oh, who cares? It's a horse. The horse can't speak." That's not the point of it. The point that it's an American sport that people really care about.
Well, we kind of stole it from Great Britain.
Well,
but that's beside the point.
It's an American event.
No, absolutely. We've turned it into a really true American event. My biggest thing also, when you look at the nature of horse racing, you look at all of these. I mean, a lot of people think that these people who own these stables are just like these big snobby, head and like nose in the air kind of like owners, but the truth of the matter is that they really take care of these horses. Like American thoroughbreds are some of the best kept and the best taken care of animals in the entire world. Not only are they like obviously specifically bred to do this, but they're also specifically, taken care of, and they're monitored properly. And now, when you look at American Pharoah, he's back in Kentucky now, and he's taking a nice little siesta. He may never run another race.
Doesn't have to.
Well, I mean,
he should though.
No, absolutely, he should. I think he should run the Breeders' Cup Classic, and that should be his last race. And if he wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, that's it, retire, because he's never going to get better. And he's already won the top three races, and the fourth biggest race of the horse racing calendar is the Breeders' Cup Classic when the Breeders' Cup comes around in November. So, but going back to what I was saying, right now American Pharoah, he's probably laying on the grass somewhere in Kentucky. I forgot where exactly they took him, but now this even goes for losers too. I mean, these horse races, these horses are so well taken care of. And the care from the individuals who take care of these horses, and all of the work that goes into accommodating. I mean, it's just from my perspective. I think those kinds of factors go way not noticed enough.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It's a great point. Like that's what I'm trying to get at. Is I want more, not just coverage, but I want more people appreciating what has happened here, and all the stuff that's gone into it, and this, the same jockey on the horse, and an older guy, and just riding on this dominant horse, like you said, really could be the most dominant horse since Secretariat. When you look at his times and just how he, from start to finish, he was leading Belmont. He was ahead right from the start.
Well, yeah,
and it was from
Yeah, he had a very bad start, but he quickly got the lead within the first maybe 100, 150 yards,
right.
and then from there he led the entire race.
Right, which is impressive in the longest race of the three, and it's incredible to watch that. I was excited. I know it might hurt betting, I guess, because the heavy favorite is there, but from a pure watching standpoint, it's very fun, and I just hope that more people can look outside the four major sports, and if most part in America, just the top three would be baseball, basketball, and football, and enjoy the events like this, these that come around not very often. Like we saw, how many years in between, almost 40 years in between Triple Crown winners. So it's something that we should definitely appreciate. I wish I was there too.
Yeah, I would like to talk about the owners for a second, a little bit.
American Pharoah.
Yeah, American Pharoah's owned because he's owned by Zayed Stables, who's owned by the Zayed family. And now you're going to appreciate this a lot.
Man, BU.
He went to BU.
And the manager is a frat bro at NYU. So 23-year-old frat bro at NYU. He's an AE Pi.
His son,
right? Yeah, but he manages the horse though. The son.
Yes, he manages the horse.
He's an AE Pi at NYU, and he's just graduating around. I guess he just did a couple weeks ago. And he was there on TV. They were interviewing him and stuff. And I mean, imagine being that kid. Imagine being our age and going over there and to
it's an amazing story.
Pimlico and here, and then your horse is winning all three, and you're balancing school, a tough school, and then you're managing a horse, the best horse that we've seen in, like you said, very long time.
Long time. So yeah, Ahmed Zayed came over from Egypt when he was 18, got his degree in business and public health from Boston University. And eventually became an entrepreneur, started his own brewing company. He sold that brewing company to Heineken, which ended up being the largest. It was like an Egyptian commerce deal in the history of the country. It was like $250+ million. So he sold his brewing company to Heineken, started Zayed Stables in 2005, and as of right now, he's got all the top trainers. He's got Bob Vadford, who's won multiple Kentucky Derbies. Now he's got a Triple Crown winner. Won multiple Preaknesses and Belmonts too. He's got Dwayne Lucas, who's arguably one of the 3 or 4 best trainers in the history of the sport. And he's also got second tier guys like Dale Romans, who may not necessarily know them as the top names. A lot of people are familiar with Lucas. A lot of people are familiar with Baffert. Then you got guys like Todd Pletcher and Nick Zito and passing. So those are really more the casual names, but they've got a lot of really great names on their staff. And like you were saying before, his oldest son, Justin, graduating NYU, manages the horse. Technically, he owns the horse, but I'm sure that's for pure tax purposes alone. I'm sure that they don't want to get anything funky going on with that. But yeah, I mean, he was all over the cameras on Saturday, and he was crying, and he was so emotionally invested in it.
And he puked at the Kentucky Derby.
Oh yeah, no, he was so nervous. And another little known nugget is that originally they had sold off American Pharoah, and they ended up repurchased him, and they bought the horse back because they were like, wait a minute, we want him back. So we were so close to not even having this even remotely come true, any of this. They never bought back the horse. And I think they bought back the horse for $100,000. And that $100,000 that they put into the horse.
What a return.
I think right now he's made over, between race wins, between sponsorship deals, definitely 8 figures. Now it's getting up there into high 8 figures, close to $80 million. Wow. So he's been just truly, truly phenomenal. And I mean, that kid's 23 years old, and he owns American Pharoah, and I'm turning 23 in less than a month.
You're in my basement podcast.
And I'm in my basement, and you're basement podcasting. The life.
Yeah,
the life.
The life. Definitely seems like horse racing is the business to get into.
We should go out to the track more.
We've been to Belmont a bunch. I've been out to Monmouth.
Monmouth's really nice.
Yeah, it is.
I
a nice
like
place
it.
there. We like to bet. We like to watch.
No, I'm just saying, go out one day
as a sport. As people who
bring a couple $100, go out to lunch afterwards.
Bet on horse. That's
we'll get Eric.
Plenty of. That's the reason why I'm podcasting the business. I have plenty of money to spend on betting horses in Monmouth Park, New Jersey. That's what I want to do. So anyway, that was the big story of the weekend. It could be argued the real big story of the weekend is the surprising NBA finals we have. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who are most analysts, most people I work with, wherever you look, TV, radio, writers, the general consensus was somewhere between 5 and 6 games, and the Warriors would win that. Last week in the podcast, you were not here in time to make a prediction. I did pick the Cavs in 5. I believe
phenomenal.
I believe Carlin picked the Warriors in 6.
I would have went Warriors in 6.
And I think Gene also was on the Warriors side as well. I like the Cavs, in terms of best player versus best team, but the best player is really kind of not giving the full credit. the best player. I mean, this is not just best player of the season of the best couple of years. This is one of the best players in the history of basketball, professional basketball.
Players to ever play,
and he's cementing that right now. What he's doing, also best team. It's a different team than LeBron versus last year, say the Spurs, which had 3 Hall of Fame basketball players, a Hall of Fame coach, and then an emerging superstar, and Kawhi Leonard, who is one of the few people, like I said this last week as well, could guard LeBron James. I'm not sure if anyone right now on the Warriors could do that, and we've seen that nobody really can. Andre Iguodala could be on him; he could slow him down. Jeremy Green could help slow him down. LeBron has had it basically averaging a triple-double. He's doing Oscar Robinson numbers in the NBA Finals versus what people say, quote-unquote, is the best team. So I'm not sure how they are the best team. I wasn't really sold on them. They have very little experience outside of Iguodala's gold medal appearance with the USA team, but that's not NBA basketball. So I knew LeBron was driven, and he did say at the beginning of the year in the Sports Illustrated article returning home that it's going to take time, but he seems driven. He seems focused. He's playing like a man on a mission right now. I can't say enough. I mean, watching him, covering him for work, it's just to see what he's doing is unbelievable. Without Kyrie Irving, who we lost, in the middle of this beginning of the series, Kevin Love, who we lost before the season even started, so your option 2, option 3 are gone. And you have players like J.R. Smith and Knicks cast-off stepping up, Iman Shumpert, more of a defensive stalwart, helping out, Timothy Mozgov, another, a rim protector, putting up double-double numbers. But the main guy, number 2 option, the Robin to LeBron's Batman, is the former Australian rugby player, Matthew Dellavedova. And, he left right last night to the hospital for cramps. So he needed IV stuck in, and that's how tired out he was. This guy's like, what is he, 6'3", 6'4", just a real scrappy dude, diving for balls. People say he's dirty, just a tough-nosed kid. That's really what he is. He grew up doing that. His first sport was rugby. That's, you're bred to do. And he's helping LeBron every way he can. I believe they, like the amount of points they either assisted or scored was like in the 90 percentile of like how much, all the offense running through them essentially. And
they scored last night. He had Dellavedova at 20.
Right.
LeBron had 40.
Right.
They scored 95, so it was 60 and 95 right there.
Yeah, and then plus they assisted on 2. Yeah, so
right.
Mostly all the points we were going through Dellavedova and LeBron, and at this point, why not? Because they're playing out of their minds, and there's really no one else there. Their strategy is great. I mean, LeBron bringing the ball in. Either if they're going to play him one-on-one, LeBron's going to beat you. You put 2 defenders. Guess what? He's one of the best passers in the league. He'll find the open guy. He'll find J.R. Smith. He'll find Shumpert. He'll find whoever the open man is. James Jones to hit the shot. And the most impressive thing has been their defense, because when have you ever seen the Golden State Warriors not score? They didn't break 60 last night. Going into the
that's the second straight game that happened.
So
they look shell-shocked to me. A large portion of the game, they like to play loosey-goosey. They like to play, I mean, not necessarily run up the scores until like hundreds and 110, but they like playing games where like they like to score in the high 90s to low hundreds. They like shooting the ball around a little bit. They know that when they play a little bit loose, not that they take plays off on defense, but they don't play necessarily as tight. And Cleveland comes from the East, where it seems like a good percentage of these games are much tighter than the games in the West. The only teams in the West that really like to grind you down and look to play that kind of style are probably Memphis and Dallas.
Right.
San Antonio plays good defense, but at the same time, they play an efficient style of basketball. They're good both ways. But Memphis really tries to grind you down, and we saw Golden State lose games 2 and 3 to Memphis too. So we watched Dellavedova basically erase Curry from the game for the first.
He hasn't. He's been in his pocket. He's been in
his pocket.
He's face guarding him. He's done everything. He's roughing him up. Curry does not like that. It's obvious he does not like that. Curry looks lost on the court. He has no idea what he's doing. He's never been there before, and it's showing. And he has no idea how to deal with a guy who's actually going to guard him. It shows you that really nobody has really put a body on Curry this whole entire year, and he's been getting mostly uncontested shots.
Well, another thing that we were introduced to, which was really odd to me, is that the teams that the Warriors have played in this playoff so far, look at the Pelicans. Mm-hmm. Drew Holiday was hurt.
Yep.
Look at the Grizzlies. They didn't have 100% Conley, even though he played really, really well in Game 2.
Right.
He was not, 100% Conley. who could come close to probably erasing Kyrie from the game. You look at Houston, Patrick Beverley, hurt. You look at Cleveland now, Kyrie's hurt. But luckily, you've had this scrappy guy who's come out of nowhere.
Right, and you know, going in, you had Irving, who you know was hurt as well. And then you figure, no, Irving, wow, what point guard has Steph Curry played against? And then out of nowhere, the lowest paid guy out of either team,
right.
Matthew Dellavedova, has now been the star. I mean, look, he's not going to be the star because LeBron's there. But the number 2 option, 1B to LeBron has been Matthew Dellavedova, a guy who drives a Mazda. Think about that. Think about that. Him and LeBron. LeBron probably drives a Mazda to get to his next car, which is like a Bentley, Ferrari, whatever you want to name it. This guy driving a Mazda, getting paid the league minimum, and like you said, he's erased the league MVP.
You know what this reminds me of? The comparison is a little like apples to oranges. But the last time that I remember a player having like this kind of an impact, like this kind of obscure, not like out of nowhere kind of performance in like a final situation, was when Dallas played Miami the second time in 2011, and Dallas ended up having a huge performance from J.J. Barea,
right?
And he ended up being kind of like the X factor in the series because that team was filled with a bunch of older guys: Sean Marion, Jason Terry, Jason Kidd. So all these guys were just like old guys who had been through the grind before and not necessarily gotten to the top of the mountain yet. So you had all these like veteran kind of, even like Tyson Chandler too. You had all these veteran kind of guys meshing well with Dirk's game. But it was really Barea who was the spark plug because he had a couple of games where he scored like 15, 20 points in the finals, and he ended up being the difference in the series. And when you look at Dellavedova, it's like Golden State's got to worry about JR hitting a 3. They got to worry about Shumpert hitting from 3. They have to worry about Mozgov protecting the rim and using, Bogut and Azalea on him. But they don't really have a guy. I mean, like Dellavedova's taking Curry out of the game, but you look at it from the other side, they don't really have a guy who takes Dellavedova out of the game on the offensive side, which is why he's been so efficient at hitting 3-pointers. He's been so efficient at kind of like getting into like from the 15-foot range, and he's been hitting these floaters. They don't really have a guy who's covering him. So when Cleveland has been calling plays for Dellavedova's name, chances are he's been getting open looks. And one thing that I don't think Steve Kerr has done a very good job of in this series is taking Dellavedova seriously. And I think after Game 3, you look at it, he's a player that you have to start taking seriously, and not just figuring out ways that you can get Curry going on when the Warriors are on the offensive side of the ball, but figuring out a way to how to stop Dellavedova, maybe getting him into foul trouble, maybe trying to exploit whatever weakness you can because he's quick. He's scrappy on defense. He's rarely out of position. He's been hitting 3-pointers and he's been hitting these floaters. So how do you take him out of the game? Force him to make an extra pass. Do something creative to try to keep him on the perimeter, but at the same time not giving him the opportunity to make these shots.
Right. But the problem is with that, the minute you do that, the minute you put extras into Matthew Dellavedova, what happens?
You guess who's coming back into the picture?
LeBron James.
Guy's averaging 40 points a game. At this point, I feel like he's going to average 35 in the series. That's probably a safe conservative estimate right now, considering he's averaging 40.
Sure.
But like at this point, I think, I swear to God, I feel like Golden State could win the next 3 games and LeBron would still win the Finals MVP. I think like last night he had it on lock.
Oh yeah,
he
deserves it.
I will be shocked if they award the Finals MVP to somebody else other than LeBron, unless Steph Curry has 3 or 4. I mean, because the series could still go 7.
Right.
Unless he has like these 3 or 4 like monumental games where he's averaging 30 points and he really gets going again. They finally figure it out. Then you could realistically give Curry the MVP.
Well,
but right now, win or lose, it's LeBron.
There's not one player on the board right now. If you had a who would you give to on the Warriors?
Right, there's nobody.
It's unforeseen. They would have to have good games starting in Game 4 and then in Game 5 and Game 6.
Right.
They'd have to start. There's not one player now you can give it to. No one's deserved it.
It's
LeBron 1, Dellavedova 2. That's it.
Right.
So I mean, it has to happen. I know in the NHL playoffs, I'm not sure it's happened in the NBA playoffs where the loser gets the final.
It happened once,
and
it happened the first year the award was. It's a true story. The first time the NBA Finals MVP award was given out was 1968-69, I believe, or 1969-70. Forgot what year it was. but the Lakers lost in the finals, and Jerry West won the MVP award.
Right, actually,
and since then, every award given
team
has been to a winning team.
Right, and
so I'm fully prepared that if win or lose, LeBron will be the MVP of the series.
Well, looking that way right now, and that you lead me to my next question, which is a great segue. Is the one thing I'm fascinated about, and this is part of me, working with the NBA and seeing this happen, is that we know that people hate LeBron. My question is why?
I don't know why.
If you had narrowed down to one specific thing, do you hate him because
it's the decision.
He left Cleveland?
No,
do you
it's
hate him because
decision,
of
the way he left.
Why, like of how he left Cleveland, the process, the decision? Yes. Do you hate him because social media? Do you hate him just because he's the best? Do you hate him because it's oversaturated? He's constantly on the TV. Like I want to know what
that's a little bit too. I'll be honest. When the decision happened, I wasn't necessarily pissed off he went to Miami, but like it was the way he did it. Though. It was the whole special. I mean, like, personally speaking, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was irked by it. But I wasn't, like, to the point where I said to myself, I hate you, LeBron James. Or, like, you're the worst person ever. Like, it irked me. And honestly, it did. But after a year, I got over it. I watched him play in 4 consecutive finals. Because he is the special player he is. And I could put my previous bias aside for watching something special. I mean, I've had experience with this in other sports. I've seen Tom Brady win 4 Super Bowls as a Jet fan. It hurts me the most. I've watched guys like Marty Brodeur win Stanley Cups and have Henrik Lundqvist never win one before. It hurts me. It irks me. But at the same time, I kind of respect these guys. David Ortiz comes up and hits anytime he comes up in a clutch spot against the Yankees, he delivers. That irks me, but I get over it. I understand I'm watching something great. It happens. That's just the general sports fan in me. But yeah, I look at LeBron. I looked at the special. I could see why it irked a lot of people. And not only did it irk a lot of people, but then for him to be currently the face of the NBA, the best player, head and shoulders above. He's probably right now. He's probably like 2 notches above the next best player,
100%.
Who's either Kevin Durant or Anthony Davis.
Yeah, and
then it's probably a notch or 2 below to guys like Chris Paul and
Harden and Curry.
Right. And you look at LeBron, and he's getting a lot of commercials. He's on a lot of promotional material. He's always on your television set. He's always playing on national television. You have people who call these games. What are they supposed to do? Say like, oh, LeBron James, maybe he has a bad game. They could say like, oh, LeBron is off. He's got like 15 and 8. That's not even like a bad LeBron game. That's like a terribly like brutal LeBron game.
Yeah.
But
and people would kill it out of that.
But it's like when you hear these announcers speak, there's nothing you can say about LeBron but great things when he's playing because he's that special of a player. And over time, that builds up to the point where it's like people are almost sick of it. Not that they don't understand what's happening. Obviously, everybody who watches basketball understands that what's happening right now is really, really special. And there are only 3 or 4 other players in the history of the league who could do what LeBron James is doing right now. But I think it's a combination of it's like that when that first domino hit. A lot of people enjoyed watching LeBron when he was on Cleveland because they enjoyed the hard work that it took for him, coming from a personal standpoint, for him to get Cleveland into that position. And a lot of people were secretly rooting for him to finish the job.
Oh,
and
sure.
he left him.
Sure.
But
people hated him before he even left, or before the decision, because people will still say, oh, he quit versus Boston.
Right, well, he didn't quit versus Boston. He just didn't have enough help.
But the people say that, though. So the hate started before the decision even happened. So that's like why I brought this up, because that was one of my points. Is I don't think it was just on the decision. Because me, personally, like my feelings on LeBron is, well, the decision, I'm not sure if you were with me. We watched. I know we went to Andrew Crawford as our writer, went to his house, watched it, and us as Knicks fans, we were upset. I was upset because I thought he should be a Knick. I thought that he said he loves playing at MSG. In my head, you can call this bias, but MSG is the mecca of sports. You want to play on the big stage, it's New York. New York is the number 1 market. You have one of the best arenas, the best arena there. You can play for a Knicks. You could revive that franchise. I thought it made too much sense, and he chose to go team up with other players. His good friend Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh there too. And he won 2 rings, went to 4 straight championships, and I can't blame him for that because he went there and he wanted to win, and he got what was done. Would he have won if he was with the Knicks? That remains to be seen. Do I think that? I mean, would there have been a better chance for the Knicks to win? Sure, of course. Would then Carmelo Anthony? Yeah, there would. And I'm a big Melo fan. LeBron's in a different category. He would have brought the Knicks closer to titles. Would have been 4 straight appearances. Who knows? The East is weak. Could have been 1 appearance. I would bet. Yeah, I would bet that we would have been very close to a championship. And that's how good LeBron is. Him alone. So that was my basis for being upset of the decision. Not because, why are you on TV doing this? You're LeBron James. You're the biggest star around. You could do what you want. Like, people want to watch it. People tuned in. Everyone, that was must see TV. Everyone watched it. You're a fool and you're a liar. You said you did not watch it. That's just where it comes down to. So I was upset because of his decision itself, not the decision program. And I think that plays into my criticisms of him. And I always say that he has A-Rod disease. And A-Rod disease, if you don't know, is when you have a lot of talent on the field or the court or whatever you play on the ice, and then off that where you play, you're an idiot and you say the wrong things. Not do the wrong things because LeBron James, his record is clean. He's not a thug. He's a great family man. His kids. He plays.
That's another thing that bothers me too.
Married to his high school sweetheart. Everything about him is great in that regard. But he says the dumbest things. He posts the dumbest things. And A-Rod's very similar. Says dumb things. Does dumb actions. So that's why I put him in. And then him saying, "Oh, I love MSG. Maybe I'll play here one day." That's part of it. Don't say that if you don't want to come here, because then you have a whole entire fan base. Not just any fan base. You have the number 1 market. Now saying, okay, the winds are turning here, maybe he's going to come. But he didn't. And he went to Miami instead, and he took his talent to South Beach, and he went to 4 straight championships. He won 2. He won half of them. LeBron also lost versus San Antonio, and he has everyone's well aware, LeBron has a losing record in the NBA Finals. Everyone's so quick to point out that he has a losing record in the NBA Finals. Meanwhile, name me a player who could bring a team single-handedly to the Finals as many times as LeBron James did. Maybe Dirk did once with Dallas. Dirk had a great coach in Rick Carlisle and very good role players, and he won. LeBron is doing it single-handedly. This Cavs team, might be worse than any Cavs team he's played for in the past. Definitely worse than the Heat teams. Because without Love and Irving, you have nothing there. And he's doing right now, making this team look good. A guy who drives a Mazda and was a rugby player look like an all-star. A freaking all-star versus Steph Curry. So that's how good LeBron James is. So I just don't understand the basis for hate. And I'm here, producing for my job, and I'm answering phone calls, people saying LeBron stinks, LeBron's not Magic Johnson, this and that. And my question is why? Why is he not on the level of those players? He's done everything.
Of course he's on the level of those players. Anybody who disagrees is a hater. Listen, every star athlete is going to have haters. That's just the way it is. But it was interesting that you brought that up because I was actually going to bring this up and you did it, and I tried to cut you off, so I apologize for that.
No, it's okay.
But when you said that LeBron is a big-time family man and he married his high school sweetheart and he's always staying off the court.
Right.
A lot of people believe that the people he associates with are kind of sketchy.
Who, like Maverick Carter?
Yeah, like questionable kind of personalities. And I mean, you could debate that. I mean, I don't necessarily personally know them, so I'm not going to pass judgment on them. But when you look at LeBron, he's, knock on wood, he's got this squeaky clean record. He does everything in his power to be the best family person that he can be. And this is something that I respect a lot about, especially a lot of the NBA top players, because we've talked about this on a previous podcast, and you look at a guy like Carmelo Anthony. Not to turn this into a Knicks discussion, but a lot of people criticize LeBron and Carmelo and praise a guy like Stephen Curry, when in reality, what is the difference between those two players? Maybe LeBron says 1 or 2 more dumb things along the way here and there, but that's just because
probably more than 1 or 2, but yeah.
But that's just because every time he opens his mouth, there's a camera there. You know what I mean? It's I'm sure Steph Curry has said something stupid.
But you could be aware of that because Steph Curry's cameras following around too. Does Derek Jeter never have cameras around him?
No, but Derek Jeter made sure.
But that's my point. There are plenty of players in the limelight. Tom Brady is in the limelight. He's never made a bad. Peyton Manning, are they oversaturated?
I don't disagree.
Yes, they're all oversaturated. You always see them.
Tom Brady has made some questionable appearances in public. with those boots, those ugly freaking boots.
Well, that's just you can make fun of his attire.
You can make
that's
fun
not
of
him
that.
doing
No,
something
absolutely not.
wrong. LeBron has done stuff that as a teammate would irk me. If you, let's say we were playing and I'm LeBron James and you're Kevin Love, and then I posted an Instagram thing saying instead of what is it, the stepping in or out thing, whatever that was, why? I forgot the wording of it. He put like a Twitter or Instagram post about because Love is never part of the team, never part of like the unit they are. And he said, instead of fitting out, want like fit in instead of fitting out. That's what he said, like calling out Kevin Love.
Right.
If you're Kevin Love, you'd be pissed at me.
I know.
Weird. So there's no. So why create a rift or a faction in your locker room?
I don't think he. Personally speaking, I'm not gonna I'm not trying to defend him. But coming from his mind, he probably doesn't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, that's the problem.
And he probably thinks that by putting this out there, it would help unite Love and like his teammates will see it. And they'll say to themselves, we have to try to incorporate Love more into this. Love will see it, and he'll say,
they'll see it and they'll say, yeah, Love's a weirdo, and we'll just stay
ourselves.
That's why
NBA culture.
That's why he's in a picture with JR and Kyrie, and he had freaking
that's NBA culture.
Timothy Mozgov behind him in the picture. The guy doesn't English not even his first language, and he fit in better than Kevin Love did. Now everyone knows Kevin Love was never like this in
Minnesota.
He was like this in Minnesota. He was not a big team-oriented guy. He's very to himself, and that's fine. But why put a passive-aggressive post out on social media just to irk him? And I just don't understand that. And I'm not bashing LeBron because the whole point of this was to say that I'm on LeBron's side. I'm here saying LeBron James could be the best player of all time. I think in a one-on-one standpoint, he is. I think he'll end up with many more championships because he's playing his best basketball right now at the age of 30, and he still has half a decade of prime left, in my opinion.
Right.
He's very well-conditioned. He's showing it. Look how many minutes he's playing. He could do this. So I think LeBron is going to win many more championships, and I think on the court right now he's cementing his status as that the guy who really did something on the court that no one else could do. Because Jordan had Pippen and Jordan had Robin and Jordan.
But Jordan never willed the team on his own to titles.
No,
and LeBron right now has arguably done it twice, and both times in Cleveland.
It's very dominant what he's doing, and he's being what everyone said could have been one of the top 10 best teams. If the Warriors won, they could have been one of the top 10 teams ever
of all time
with their record and
every advanced statistic points
right.
to the Warriors being among the top 10 teams of all time.
So it's
offensive
amazing.
Efficiency, defensive efficiency, everything's off the freaking charts. They had the league MVP. They had
best defensive team.
Right, the best defensive team. They had a player make first team all defense. They had Curry made first team all NBA.
Right. Yes,
right.
Yes, he did.
Okay. So
and Clay was second or third team as well, if I recall correctly.
I believe he was third team.
Yeah. So Curry in his first year too, another amazing thing.
I think going back to LeBron, it's just a matter of the domino effect. When he does something that irks somebody or bothers somebody, maybe it doesn't really necessarily put it over the top. But if you put enough of these, events out there, it's like dominoes. All it takes is one, and then eventually that they'll all fall down.
Oh, definitely.
Like guys like us who do nothing with their lives except watch sports for a living understand how freaking phenomenal and special and amazing he is.
Right.
So we can overlook any kind of shortcomings that he has because what we're seeing is we know is transcendent, so we'll give him a pass. Unless he goes out and pop, tomorrow, which is never going to happen.
You're referring to shooting a gun.
Right.
That was shooting a gun. Joe put the finger gun and okay. So yes, if he turns into a thug tomorrow, right, but that's not who LeBron is. We know that's not who LeBron is.
We've seen players
this
go
guy
by
eats,
the wayside
sleeps,
because
breathes basketball.
Right.
He's not going to shoot.
LeBron is not going to go out and Javaris Crittenton, tomorrow. That's not in his character.
No.
Has he made questionable decisions? Sure, but for all intents and purposes, for everything that we know, he's respectable. He's maybe not necessarily humble, but when you watch, especially an interview, after a finals game with, LeBron and Doris Burke, and, he's the first person who goes right up to her and, even win or loss, comments on the game. That's just the way he is.
He does. He just seems like a generally jolly person.
Right.
A very happy, it doesn't seem negative. There's plenty of guys in the NBA who you see during interviews who are not fun to talk to. Derrick Rose, plenty of other guys like that. They're very negative. LeBron, not like that at all.
He's been like this since he was 17.
Right.
There aren't many phenoms who were anointed as the next one at 17, not only lived up to the hype and delivered, but remained mostly the same throughout their entire career. And besides the couple of bumpy, incidents that we've named in the last 10 minutes, he's mostly been the same person that he was back then.
Right.
And that is really, really an accomplishment.
That was the issue. See, when he left for Miami, he didn't accept that. He has a problem accepting the villain role, very close to what Alex Rodriguez fails to do as well. You wanted to be the face, you wanted to be the person everyone loves, but you did the thing that you're doing the action people hate, but you want to still be treated the same way as you were prior to that. And he didn't understand how to turn and become, okay, yeah, I left Cleveland. They weren't helping. If you said, I left Cleveland, they weren't helping me out, Dan Gilbert can go shove it because of his letter. I'm going to go win down South Beach with a super team and win my rings and be a dominant player. That's great. That's awesome. People said, you know what? I respect the heck out of that. You want to win. But he didn't do that. He said to play both sides. And that kind of puts people in a weird position. Again, this is another thing that adds to why people hate him. Why, when he left the court yesterday, I don't know if you saw the video of the woman who screamed at him, calling him profanities. Stuff like that wouldn't happen to, I don't know. I mean, you were too young. Maybe how Jordan was reacting to. We were too young for Bird or Magic. I guess I'm sure they're hated by rival teams. But I felt like they had this respect. And LeBron is severely lacking respect. And I don't get it because
I don't get it either.
He's doing something on the court that no one
has ever done.
Maybe.
I'm trying to
Could Jordan put up the numbers? Yes. Jordan could
put up the numbers, but that's not
Will
necessarily.
could put up crazy numbers, yes.
Jordan never made the finals without Scottie Pippen.
Right.
Who was the last really superstar to bring a team to the finals as definitively like their best player without really that much help?
It's Dirk.
You have to go, I don't think Dirk was a superstar. I think it was just really a collection of just,
Dirk's a top 20 player of all time. He's a superstar.
No, I mean, yeah.
In my opinion.
I don't think in 2010 he was a superstar. I think from 2003 to 2008-09, he was one of the league's 10
You're splitting hair. It's 1 year. Come on.
Okay. All right, I'm splitting hair. All right, fine, fair enough. He's a top 20 player of all time.
But I get your point. It's a very hard thing to do. It's almost never done. And you can make the argument. Yes, you can make the argument that Dallas's team minus Dirk was a much better team. Numbers 2 to 12 in the roster, whatever how many roster spots they had back then, was better than say the LeBron Cavs team. Now the LeBron Cavs team prior to leaving for Miami, maybe even the first Miami team. You could argue that, and that's fine. Throughout history, who else do you have in mind? I really can't think.
Maybe Wilt did it. No, but Wilt had West. And Baylor. That's not a really good comparison.
Yeah, you've always had a combination of a younger player with a rising younger player with an older player who wanted a ring, and they would go find another team. That's always that's usually the same old story you find. So I don't know what really.
Not even like maybe Hakeem. That's really like.
Didn't you have Clyde though?
No, he had Clyde in 95. 94
right.
It was Hakeem and just a really, really great collection of great role players.
But did Hakeem, it's great.
He didn't really have a second.
Did he have the numbers? The numbers what LeBron's doing versus the team. There was no.
Bulls. His numbers.
There was no Chicago Bulls then.
Right.
There were, but Michael Jordan was busy doing whatever he was doing.
Right.
So
that's another thing we have to take into account. The Warriors are such a good team historically.
That's what I'm saying. If they won, they're in the top tier ever.
Right.
Just based on their record and all the comments like you named before. So that's something, this whole finals to me in I guess it's funny how things shifted because I was so, even working for the NBA, people always make fun of me there too. I'm so focused on the Rangers and the NHL playoffs and I'm thinking, okay, it's our cup. And then this NBA thing comes along and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And now, to me, it's shifted from an incredible finals that also I just saw on Twitter a little bit ago, the highest for the first 3 games, highest TV-rated game ever most people watched. And I'm not surprised by that. It has LeBron James and it has a West team the Western Conference team that everyone seems to love. Everyone loves Steph Curry. Steph Curry could do no wrong. Can you imagine if if LeBron had his kid up at the podium?
It would be meltdown. People would have meltdown.
People would flip out. They'd end the press conference. They would try to shoot LeBron.
Twitter would still be down today if that happened.
Right. It's terrible. He gets no love. And I put this out on our Twitter at DNS Podcast. I tweeted out saying, tell us why you hate LeBron. Tell us the specific reason why you hate LeBron. Tell us is because he left the Cleveland Cavaliers, left his homegrown team. The way he did it, like Joseph, the decision, the dumb things he says, the dumb things he posts, the oversaturation, whatever it is. I want to know why you hate him, why you refuse to give him credit. If we get Twitter responses, we'll bring it up next week at the end of the show, or whatever. I'm really interested to see that as a person who works in the NBA and is dealing with this all the time, and I'm glad Joe's on the same page as me. So I find that very interesting. That's sort of our question of the day or the week sort of thing. I want to see why you don't really care for what LeBron is doing right now. Refuse to give him credit. That to me is immensely interesting.
Wait, before we move on,
sure.
I just want to say what David Blatt is doing also has been phenomenal.
David Blatt, for another first-year coach.
He's out-coached Steve Kerr in all three of these games.
Oh, sure, 100%.
Game one, they kind of slipped away from them. I wouldn't call it necessarily a choke job. I mean, the term choke gets really overthrown too much. But the Cavaliers kind of let it get away from them in the final minutes. But on the whole, I would say, let's see, 48. Oh, I mean, you have to count the 5-minute overtimes too.
Yes.
48, 96, 144, 149. All right, so 154 total minutes in the final so far between the overtimes in game 1 and 2. I would say about 120 to 130 minutes of those have been Blatt has outcoached Steve Kerr.
Sure.
I think it's been a good majority so far.
With an asterisk, if Kerr had LeBron, things are different.
But at the same time,
other decisions. You're right. You're right. Yes, 100%.
But I feel like with the guys that he has, especially coaching on the fly, because he lost Kyrie in game 1, but coaching on the fly, he's done a remarkable job, and he's really, like I was saying before, he's really utilized Dellavedova basically to his maximum potential.
Oh yeah.
You're watching him peak in his first he's been a good role player throughout the finals, but this is the first time that he's been thrust into like a go-to kind of role. And not only is he's playing great. He's been the second or third best player on the entire court. So kudos to David Blatt. I think he's done a phenomenal job.
And he has Israel on his side too. They said they
yes,
came
he does.
Out, so it's in scriptures that
he's got the chosen people on his side.
Yeah, that it was destiny for him to win this. So you can't really argue against that. And all the people of the Holy Land. Unfortunately for us, there is Stanley Cup Finals.
That's going on too.
That's on tonight, I believe. I'll be honest. I've been I've watched here and there. I've seen what's going on. I've obviously know the scores, the outcomes, and I've watched portions of every game. But my heart and soul is not into it, and I can't imagine yours is either. I'm sure you've watched. I know you probably watched all the games, but it really stinks to be thinking, okay, the team in blue that's playing should be my team in blue, not the Lightning. And I can't knock them. Right now they have control of the series.
I've gotten over it. I'll be honest.
You have?
Yeah.
I have not.
I think between all the injuries, it would have been a very, very hard hill to climb up.
I still trust Lundqvist. I still trust what Yeah.
Oh no, I trust.
But the same thing goes out that Chicago's going to come back with injuries too, and there's this series that surprised me. I thought that Chicago would have pestered Bishop way more than he has. He was banged up, and I think if they tested him, he would have given him more goals than he has, and they didn't do that. So maybe I guess credit to Tampa Bay Lightning's defense and a guy Victor Hedman, who I think should be in Conn Smythe consideration.
I agree 100% with you. I think right now, if the playoffs were to end, the top two players who should win the Conn Smythe Trophy, one Victor Hedman, two Duncan Keith.
Right.
I think they have been by far the two best players on the ice throughout the entire playoffs. No disrespect to Tyler Johnson, but he's been kind of streaky. And if you take away his 2 games where he had hat tricks, his point totals dramatically go down. So don't get me wrong, he's been a special player, and he's been a big reason why Kucherov and Palat have been awesome this series. But I think that line has been more or less a collection of those 3 players just having all outstanding playoffs in their first real run together.
Right.
Because this Bishop was hurt last year, and this team was getting its feet wet. So this is the first time they've really, really gone on a run, and they've been great. But I think Hedman has been by far a difference maker every single game.
Yeah, he has to be. He has to be because everyone said shaky defense of the Lightning. They'll win because of their.
I would argue
ability.
Minus that one play in game 1 where there was about 4 minutes left in Vermette because it was Hedman on the play that led to the tear of Vine and Poke and giveaway where Vermette scored. So minus that play, Hedman by far has been the best player.
Yeah, again, like I was saying, shaky defense of the Lightning is the key to beating them. Bishop not as strong as a goaltender as the other ones left, and it looks like it's the opposite. It's their Lightning defense has really settled down, and they figured out a way to play and to give Bishop, even though he's injured, give him a chance to win every game, and they've done that, and they're up 2-1. Chicago's offense, you thought guys like Taves and Kane and Hossa and Sharp, all these guys would light them up. I thought so too. The Rangers had scoring problems the whole playoffs, so I knew it would be hard for us. We'd win on goaltending and defense if we cooled off Lightning's offense. And I thought the opposite way for the Blackhawks would win. Really, because their whole team is great and the whole team is stacked, and they could win a defensive game. They could win a game behind Corey Crawford, and they could win a game just purely by scoring 5-6 goals. But Lightning have shocked me. We picked the Rangers, Blackhawks in it. I picked Blackhawks in this series. You pick the Blackhawks as well?
I picked the Blackhawks in 6.
Are you changing that?
No, I'm gonna stick by it, but I kind of feel like this is gonna go 7. I just it has that feeling that it's gonna go 7, and I still think the Blackhawks are going to win because I think having guys like Taves and Kane and Hossa and Sharp and Keith and Seabrook and Shaw and Richards, they have so many guys who have been there before. You could even say Crawford, too. Crawford had a really good playoffs in 2013.
Oh, yeah.
And he had a good playoff run until last year, until the conference final, where he got outplayed by Quick against the Kings. But he's been a good player, and he's just as much of a leader there as everybody else. They have a locker room. They have one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the NHL. And I think a lot of times when it comes to a championship series in any sport, the guys who have been there before always kind of find a way to get it done. And, we can look at the other 2 final series from this past year. You look back at the World Series, San Francisco, Kansas City, upstart Kansas City. A lot to like about that team, a lot of youth, a lot of good players in good spots, but they fell just short to a team that became, the closest thing we're going to see to a dynasty in our lifetime. You look at Cleveland and Golden State. Golden State is the team that, they've made the playoffs the last couple of years, but this is the first time they've really gone on a deep playoff run. Before that, they had that upset against Denver, which was maybe not necessarily fluky, but it was a good team, and the year after that, they lost to the Clippers in the first round. Now this is the first time where they really, really made a deep playoff run. Kind of reminds me of the Thunder when they went to the finals in 2012. But when they got there, they only won a game. So definitely different situation. And now you look at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay filled with a lot of youth, guys Stamkos was there in 2011 to the team that lost to the Bruins in the Eastern Conference Final. But the makeup of that team was entirely different. That team had Vinny LeCavalier. That team had Martin St. Louis. That team had I'm missing somebody. I can't remember who. They had a bunch of veteran forwards, but the makeup of that team was entirely different. This is the first time you're seeing a young, really, really talented team like Tampa Bay make a run. But despite that, Chicago is just as talented, and both of their losses have been by 1 goals. And in both games 2 and 3, Chicago had held the lead. So, if you look at the Palat goal 13 seconds after Chicago made it 2-1 in Game 3, that was huge. Because if Palat doesn't score that goal, and they don't score as fast, maybe they don't get another one, maybe they lose. And, we're looking at Chicago going up 3-1 tonight and putting a clamp down in the series instead of Tampa. So hockey has, I've said this before on a previous podcast, hockey always has a way of evening out. And I think the best complete team left in the playoffs is Chicago.
Definitely.
I'll stick by that. And I think between the talent up top, which is probably slightly better than Tampa is at this point, and the fact that they've been there before and they've done this 2 times already in the last couple of years, that's going to help a lot. Yeah. So I think Chicago will at the very least, tie this series tonight. I cannot see a situation where they lose. Now, if Tampa Bay wins this game, I believe that we may see Tampa Bay win in 5. Because I think the momentum going back to Tampa with an opportunity to clinch the Stanley Cup on home ice would be just too great, even for a team like Chicago to overcome. But that being said, I'm going to stick by my Chicago in 6 prediction because they were down 2-1 to Boston in 2013, and they came back and won 3 games in a row. And they had to win Game 4 on the road in Boston, which was probably infinitely harder to do than tonight's game is going to be.
No, I agree with you, and I think the difference between the NBA and the NHL playoffs, as we can see right now, is the NBA, sometimes the best players take over, and they show you that having the best player doesn't matter. And we could say Chicago, you could argue, until you're blue in the face, best team, best offense, best defense, best goalie, and goalie's better than Bishop. And it doesn't matter because hockey is a game where you get a couple of bounces, you got a hot player, and things change. And like he's just talking about all the the plot goal and everything. And that shows that it happens. You have a quick momentum shift. The whole game changes. The whole series changes. But to stick with my prediction too, as long as going along with you, I still want to pick the Blackhawks to come back. I just think experience matters. Maybe not as much as it does in the NBA as we see, but just guys who they're not going to fold in this pressure, not going to feel like, oh crap, we're down 2-1, it's over. We're now losing a series. I think they'll be okay. So I'm going to stick with that prediction too. I think sooner or later all the lines will start. They'll start rolling. They'll start scoring a lot of goals. Again, Bishop's Bishop's has had trouble at certain points of every one of the series he's played in, basically. So I'm waiting for that game, but I think it'll happen soon.
I can't see Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane not scoring.
Right.
If that happens, then just wow, that would be really, really impressive in itself. But history tells us that eventually they're going to wake up. So
right.
It wouldn't shock me if Patrick Kane had 2 goals tonight and completely took over and dominated the game, and Chicago wins like 4-2 going back to Tampa Bay.
No, I think it's going to. I think it could go. It definitely can go 7. I'm not sure what I picked it in. I probably picked it in 5 or 6, but I think it could go 7 now because Tampa is just one of those pesky teams. This is the final question I'll ask you before we move on to, I guess, wrap it up with some baseball talk. Is how would you feel, about the NHL season with the Tampa Bay Lightning winning? Like I know it sounds like I slide at them. You would feel good. You would rather you would be okay with seeing them win.
Look at their team from an outsider. Well, from a casual NHL fan's perspective, like a hardcore kind of fan, but a person who really, really enjoys the overall representation of the game. They have a top 5 center in the world in Steven Stamkos, arguably one of the top 6-7 players in the world, guy who scored 50 goals before. You look at Victor Hedman. Victor Hedman right now, I personally think he's one of the 5 best defensemen on the planet.
Oh, I think so.
I think if I had to list 5 off the top of my head, it would be like Duncan Keith, number 1, Drew Doughty, number 2, Shea Weber, number 3. And then when you look at 4 and 5, to me, it's almost like a tie between Ryan Suter, between the minutes that he eats, and Victor Hedman. But I think Victor Hedman has a greater impact on the ice when it comes to playing on the offensive side and being the catalyst to everybody who plays up front. So, I mean, I thought Victor Hedman was the best defenseman in the league. I think he should have won the Norris Trophy this year, and he wasn't even nominated, which just goes to show you that the Norris Trophy has become more of which defenseman can rack up the most points in a given season.
Right.
And I think that's stupid. Guys like Chris Letang and like PK Subban, I mean, the year that PK Subban had this year is going to be better than the year that he had when he won the Norris Trophy, and he's not going to win it this year.
Right.
Which, like I said, the award voting process is just very, very dumb. But, yeah, so I think Hedman, top 5 defenseman in the world. And you look at Bishop, he's a very good goalie. Then you look at their secondary players. Filppula's done this before. He's a really good second, third line center. He's playing on the top line with Stamkos. So, Ryan Callahan, he was really close to doing it with the Rangers. Then we traded him away. He's a really good leader. He had a huge goal to start the game off in Game 3. Very deceptive because he doesn't really score a lot of goals, but he does everything else that doesn't show up on the score sheet that makes Tampa Bay go. Then they have the triplets line, the TKO line, the kids line, the whatever kind of name you want to give them.
I'm going to interrupt you quick to say keep talking about this because I have to go upstairs and get our laptop charger so that we don't lose this podcast.
Phenomenal.
This is how
you want to pause it?
This is what happens. No, this is what happens when you podcast in a basement and your laptop is a piece of crap.
So we're gonna keep on rolling.
And we're gonna go right from this. We're gonna go right to this. You can handle it alone.
I can handle it alone.
And then we're gonna go right to this to some. We'll end with baseball. So Joe's got this. Hold on, 20 seconds.
All right. Beat the clock. All right. So as I was saying, Stamkos, top 5 player in the world. Hedman, top 5 player in the world. Both at their respective positions. Bishop may not necessarily be a top 5 player in the world, but this playoff season has shown that he is definitely somewhere in the top half of the league at his position. And it's the same kind of argument that a lot of people have against Blackhawks goalie Corey Crawford. They're not necessarily elite players at their position. They're not the Henrik Lundqvist, the Carey Price, the Pekka Rinne, the Jonathan Quicks of the world. But only so many players can take up those top spots. So when you look at Bishop has done, he's had an excellent playoff season, and he's had a couple of really, really bad games, but at the same time, he's had twice as many great to phenomenal games as he's had against teams like Montreal. He outplayed Price, he outplayed Lundqvist for large stretches in the Rangers series, and he's outplaying Corey Crawford in the finals. So Bishop is great. We looked at Callahan. We looked at Filppula, the kids line. The depth players are awesome. Anton Strawman, who should be a New York Ranger right now. Mike Francesa groaned about that. Strawman's really the reason why Hedman has taken another step into the stratosphere. Hedman was great before this season. Now he's even better this season than he's ever been before, and that's purely thanks to Anton Strawman. I think it was John Cooper, the head coach of the Lightning, who said Anton Strawman has the opportunity to win Victor Hedman multiple Norris trophies, and that's the truth. So then they've got guys like really, really solid offensive defensemen like Jason Garrison and Matt Carl, and they went out and acquired Braden Coburn at the deadline. So they were a really, really well-rounded team, and they're a much more well-rounded team than they're initially given credit for at the very beginning when you're just looking at them, because you think they're like between like Stamkos and the kids line, like that's it, like that's all there is to. That's all there is to them. And then they got great depth guys, too, like Paquette, who scored the game winner in Game 3, Killorn, who scored the game winner in Game 7 against the Rangers. So I'm not going to be necessarily upset if they win, because I'm always a fan of like getting new teams into the mix. And I feel like this is a situation here where the 4 best teams in the NHL this year were in the conference finals, and they played in the conference finals, and they both went to 7 games. And that's really all that you could hope for, is that you get the best competition at the end. So if you may not necessarily agree with the playoff format got us to the point where the best teams were the best teams at the end. So I can't complain with that. And if Tampa Bay ends up winning, point total-wise, they were either the 5th or 6th best team in the NHL this season. They weren't necessarily as good as St. Louis or New York or Anaheim for more of a large stretch of the season, but they were really good. And I mean, that's the way I feel. If Hedman comes back and he plays healthy to start the season, maybe they're one of the 5 best teams in the league. You know, in that sense, you're picking at straws. But everybody knew that Tampa Bay was great, even last season, even without Bishop. A lot of people realized that the sweep by the Canadians was more of a product of them not really being fully healthy than being bad. So I'm a fan of Tampa Bay. I mean, am I still bitter that they beat us? Sure I am. You know, it happens. I'm really, really bitter. But I can't, like, if they win, I'll be happy. You know, it's another team, and, like, one of this is my last point before I'll hand it back to you. But since Gary Bettman has taken over, he's made it his business to grow the game exponentially as much as he can. And when you're looking at the growth of the NHL in the last 5 years in particular, especially now with the versus rebranding of the NBC Sports Network and the more exposure on TV, you know, that you see a lot of these games on national TV. You see a lot of games on the NHL Network, a lot of games on NBC Sports Network. Every game in the Stanley Cup playoffs was televised on an NBC network, on CNBC, on USA. The game has really, really grown, and a lot of the teams in the southern markets have failed. Like the Coyotes are going to move very soon. The Glendale is kind of maybe bankrupt. Yeah. I mean, this is a story that's been breaking the last couple of days or so, but there's a very good chance the Coyotes move. The Panthers have no business being in Florida, no business being in Miami. However, when you look at teams like Dallas Stars who moved from Minnesota, you look at a team like Nashville, who there was no hockey base before the Predators even had a team there, and now the Predators are arguably the number 1 team in Nashville. Next, I mean, obviously football is king in this country, and the Tennessee Titans are good. But now that the Titans are bad, the Predators are probably the number 1 team right now in Nashville. And you look at Tampa Bay. They won a Stanley Cup in 2004. They're 2 games away from it this year. They had 5,000 people outside of their arena in downtown Tampa Bay watching the game, which is a gorgeous arena, by the way, because I've been there before. So you could consider his expansion half a failure, but also half of a success as well, because now Nashville and Tampa, they're 2 of the 10, 12 better teams in the NHL, and they're consistently selling out their arenas. And I think it was Pierre who said, or maybe it was Eddie O, who said that the atmosphere for Tampa in games 1 or 2 of the Cup Final was unreal, and it was amazing. And despite the fact that they tried to keep out Chicago fans, they didn't do a very good job because Blackhawks fans were very noticeably loud. But, I mean, Tampa Bay fans did their part. The organization has done their part. So I ranted on a little bit. Probably gave them a lot more praise than they deserved. But that's how I feel.
That's fine.
I'm first and foremost, I'm a Ranger fan, but I'm also a hockey fan. I love hockey. Loved hockey since I was 5 years old, and that's not going to change.
No, thank you for that, Joe. But my point is that I like to see a team on the, you can call a dynasty when it's an original 16. And I guess I'm more of a hockey purist, and I feel like this Tampa Bay team. I guess I'm still bitter they beat us, and I'm still bitter to see them go on and see them hoist the cup. That being said, is it good to market a star like Stamkos and maybe a future star like Hedman? Sure. Is it good to maybe make hockey down south a thing? Also, yeah. That being said, that I think that Chicago, what they've done, this could be their third in the last 7 years. I would qualify that as a dynasty, and I think that's something. It's great. It's a really hard feat to see in sports. I know we've seen it in football recently, like maybe you can say the Patriots years ago. But I think to see a team built from, a homegrown team built up the way they have been with a great coach, that's fun. And also, I'd feel vindicated that the Western Conference team beat the team that beat the Rangers, so I feel a bit better about that. But I'm not sure if this will really even help hockey down south with the Tampa Bay Lightning winning. Great, they're allowed during the Stanley Cup Finals. They should be. Any team that has a franchise in their city should be filled to capacity, and they should be yelling. But I guess maybe we could revisit this in maybe in a couple of weeks, months, or whatever, if I'm less bitter about how the NHL season transpired for me. But I don't know. Obviously, you see I'm rooting for the Blackhawks here. I picked them. I like to see a team that has a real original 16, like I said, a dynasty. That'd be something special to see. They have a great fan base. It's a great organization, one of the best organizations in sports. I'm not sure you could say the same about the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I'm not sure how I'd feel about the Lightning winning the Stanley Cup Finals. It just seems very lukewarm to me. I don't know how else to put it. I know this has gone on for a while, so we can wrap this up quickly. I guess I have one question. We could talk about this one main question for each baseball team in New York. So New York, like I said before, Tanaka winning. Coming back, Tanaka Tuesday, beating Scherzer, beating the Nationals, who everyone picked to win the World Series. Apparently Ellsbury's coming back soon. Yankees were streaking until today. It was 7 in a row. And now Andrew Miller's on the DL. I still think they'll be okay with the bullpen they have with Tanzas in the spot. Both lights out. I'm not really worried. And the reason why I'm not worried is because I think the Yankees are legit. Does this win, maybe beating the Nationals, beating the teams they have in the streak, does this give you a glimmer of hope, saying even with the injuries and they're still winning with this lineup, are they really legit? Because I think I saw them a couple days ago. I think they are legit, and I think they're legit because of the playoffs. I think they're a gritty team who work together. And you have Tanaka back, which is the main point. With CC figuring stuff out, having Evaldi having a good start like he did today, and also having other guys, Big Mike, Pineda. We have Nova's pitching well. He's coming back from his injury. All of a sudden, you're going, well, the pitching is a strength. I think they're legit. I think the AL East is crap, and they could win this. They could beat the Rays out for the first place. They are in first place. I like the Yankees where they're going. So keep this a quick segment. I have a feeling I know where you're going with this, but
yeah.
Do you think the Yankees are legit?
I agree. I think they're legit. However, I think they're a starting pitcher away. I feel like I would feel much more comfortable going into the second half of the season with another quality starter. Now, it doesn't have to be like a Cole Hamels or an Ace kind of guy, but go out there and get me like a Brandon McCarthy. Get me like another 3 or 4 kind of guy who can stabilize the rotation a little more than it is now, because we really don't know how Tanaka is going to fare. I mean, he's electric and he's phenomenal when he does start, but right now we only have less than half a season over the last year and a half of starts from Tanaka under his belt. So Pineda's been great too. With those 1-2, they could win the World Series. I mean, the lineup has not been the problem all season. McCann's been hitting friggin' 400 for the last couple of weeks with a slugging percentage close to 800. That's phenomenal. That's unreal. You look at A-Rod. A-Rod's been A-Rod the entire season. Teixeira's hit his most home runs that he's hit in a season for the last couple of seasons. And then they're getting Ellsbury back, and then they had a guy like Gardner, who's the ultimate glue guy and the ultimate Yankee kind of player. So, like I said, give me another starter. Get them healthy. They're for real. They play in the weakest division in baseball.
Yeah, they do.
But they play in a league that's considerably weaker this year. I mean, you may be looking at a playoff scenario where it's like Houston, Kansas City, Detroit. Those are all teams we could beat.
Yeah. No, that's why I think that's why I think they're legit. I really think these are a legitimate team, a legitimate threat.
Who's the standout team in the American League? There isn't.
I mean,
unless the Angels get healthy, that's the closest thing.
If Tanaka's back and healthy,
We're going to win the American League.
I think they are. I think they are very the standout team. On the other team in New York, the Mets, they were just no hit, like I said before. What's his name again? Hester, whatever. Exactly.
Heston?
I thought it was Heston. Yeah,
it's Heston.
It doesn't even matter.
I don't know why I said Heston.
The point is that
he threw a no hitter.
He's a 27-year-old rookie journeyman, and he threw a no hitter versus the Mets, and he had a hit and an RBI in the game, which so he had more hits than the whole Mets roster.
Here's something great about that too. The 3 base runners that he allowed were all on hit by pitches. He did not walk anybody either. Has that ever happened? I'm sure it's happened. But the last time somebody threw a no hitter and didn't allow a hit or a walk in the same game. I don't even remember the last time that happened. That's amazing. Just goes to show you how depleted the Mets lineup is too by injuries. I mean, they're getting Travis Deneau back soon, and hopefully David Wright. Despite his spinal stenosis, but they need to get healthy.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, with all the injuries, I mean, do you see them making a move and making a run, or do you think that the management will just force them to just be what they are and just kind of squander and flame out?
I feel like I can't see management making a move, but I feel
that's the issue.
I feel like management looks at this team like Sandy Allison looks at this team and says, "We're a really good team. We just got to get healthy, and we need to get some consistency." Because when they were fully healthy to start the season, they won 11 games in a row. When you win 11 games in a row, I mean, sure, it's kind of fluky, but that doesn't mean you're a bad team. Good teams win 11 games in a row. So I think it's always something else with this team. Whether it's Wright getting hurt, always Deneau getting hurt, Harvey missing an entire season. It just always seems like there's something missing, and that's even before talking about guys like Zach Wheeler too. So I can't see them going out and making a move. This is the kind of ownership group and management who eventually they're going to spend money, but I feel like they're biding their time and waiting to spend money and splash and keep their starters.
Yeah,
that's what I think they're.
It seems like they're waiting for next year when everyone's healthy and they can make a real push. I don't know why. Their management group is awful. I don't trust it. If I was a Mets fan, I hate it myself too. So this is bad news for Mets fans. If you listen to this part of the podcast, close your ears because this is not really something good to listen to.
Look at the Mets having a better record than the Yankees. Not so good right now.
I was always in the Yankees bandwagon from the start.
Looked really, really good from the first month. I was really off the Yankees.
That's the sad part.
I just thought they were closer to a 500 team than an 90.
That's the sad part of the Mets too, because they have a good team, they have a good pitching staff, and without the injuries, maybe they'd be even better what they are, and they are still a first place team. So the fact that management won't go out and get a player or players to help them, especially with all these injuries, is really. It's sad, and it's been this way forever, and I couldn't imagine being a Mets fan and to deal with the ineptitude that they bring to that organization. It's really unfortunate. So, unfortunately, for the Mets, and once the Nationals start getting hot, that's going to be trouble for them because I don't think they're going to be in this, I guess, really bad stretch they're in for much longer than that. So
I feel like if they get healthy, they'll contend for a wild card spot.
Oh yeah,
I feel like I can't foresee them really falling off a cliff and then going from being a potential 90-win team to being having less than 80 wins. I can't see that. I feel like there's enough good character on the team and enough talent on the team where they'll be okay. But at the rate this is going now, they're going to need to get these guys back and healthy, and they're going to have to start producing a little more than they have been now.
Yeah, well, Mets fans just hope for the best. Anyway, we're running along in this one, so we got all this stuff in. Great NBA segment. Joe had a great NHL segment. Talk about Belmont, obviously. Joe, the best horsing person we have around here. A little baseball, so that's the podcast for this week. Like I said, tweet at us at DNS Podcast, DNS_podcast, or at Edward L. Murphy and at Joe_Calabrese92. Answer the LeBron question I put out. Give us any other thing you want us to talk about next week. We'll do that. I'm sure we'll get Joe Carlin back on the podcast soon. He did a great job. We'll get Gene. I know he's been busy. We'll get Gene back on. We'll get Crawford back on, especially previewing golf stuff. So we'll have a bunch of people on this. Rotating the podcast. We'll get our blogs out as usual. So just visit the site, dishingandswishing.com. Again, thanks to all the people who listen and tweeted us, like our friend Chris, great friend of the show and podcast and blog, everything, all the support people get, all the people who listen and share our stuff. It is much appreciated. So That's what we got for this week. Again, we've been spoiled with great weeks of sports. We're looking out for the end of the Stanley Cup Finals, the NBA Finals, and obviously we're inching closer towards to football season and MLB playoffs. So there's always something going on with us. Always interesting to talk about. Any final thoughts going before next week's podcast?
No, I mean, I'm rooting for Chicago tonight. I'm with you.
So we're rooting with Chicago. We're rooting for Cleveland. And I guess next week we'll find out how we both fare in these predictions, all right?
All right.
Sounds good to me. So,
I'm Joe.
And I'm Eddie. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening, as always.